Welcome to Act 3, the podcast where we explore how to thoughtfully shape the rest of our lives. I'm your host, Kara Gray. This podcast is sponsored by Good Morning Freedom, my retirement coaching service where I help executives and professionals plan their Act 3. For more information, stay tuned until the end. Today, I welcome Dena Grushkin to the podcast. Dena has spent 36 years as a special education middle and high school teacher in New Jersey's public schools, reaching students who felt ambivalent in a classroom setting and making them feel successful was her mission. She did that by building trusting relationships and designing learning experiences that helped them meet with success. Following her retirement from teaching, Dena is working as a part-time educational consultant for the New Jersey Educational Association. In addition to her consultant work, Dena is continuing her work as the founder and CEO of the Dream School Foundation, an organization that supports public education in NJEA with educational resources and infrastructure. Dena also teaches yoga to adults in addiction recovery, women who are over 50, and mamas-to-be. Besides her love for teaching, Dena's greatest joy is her beautiful family, including her two dogs, Julie and Isaac, who frequently join her on the mat. So welcome, Dena.
Welcome to you as well. This is very exciting. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, cool. It's great to have you. So you retired officially in 2018.
I did.
And I want to back up a little bit. I always start with what your life looked like pre-retirement. You were teaching, you had a family. Tell me your weekly schedule, your daily schedule, what your life looked like.
Well, I started teaching at the age of 20.
Wow.
And yes, in fact, I was a high school teacher then. So my students were not much older than I was. So it was very interesting and exciting. And then have led a 36-year career in teaching. I did take a break for 2.5 years when my daughter was born, and then my son followed her 2 years later. And then I returned to teaching. And so I accumulated about 36 years in public education, working special ed. That was my area. But I did a lot of, there's lots of changes in special education, how it was delivered, in the past couple of decades. I can't.
Yeah, I can imagine. My mom was actually a special education teacher, but she's many, many years retired. So I'm not surprised to hear that there's been some progress made. Yeah.
Laws, and of course, every state, sort of delivers differently. But New Jersey was always really in the forefront of special ed advocacy and really working in the best interest of kids and providing for them the least restrictive environment. So I worked in some really great schools, and I had some really fantastic experiences. And I worked in self-contained classrooms, where kids were with me all day, and then I did what they called is a resource room where they would come in a period, and then they would go out into the mainstream. And then I was part of a pilot program in New Jersey, this inclusion model, which started back in about 2000 and when was Rebecca born? 1989, something like that, right? And so, and that was when kids who could handle the rigors to the degree of the mainstream content with support from a special ed teacher who would adapt and modify curriculum in order for them to be successful in the mainstream. And so that became, the new latest wave of special ed. And so I sort of stayed in that space for the remainder of my career. And it was a beautiful one. I loved teaching. I always say that, I wake up in the morning, and there were very few days here I was, like, oh, I got to go to work. I never really felt that way. I was always excited to go there and do my thing. And my greatest interest was really working with kids who really were quite challenged academically, just really having a hard time. Smart kids, but just, not able to access the curriculum and feel successful at it. And so I really enjoyed making that happen for them and making them feel good about school and good about learning. And, you know, so that was really just an incredible, a time working with, really just unbelievable kids. I, you know, I see them, I'm sort of teaching now, locally for about 4 years. So, I don't see kids as much on the street or in the supermarket, as much as I used to because, they're all grown. But I used to always enjoy running into them and occasionally I still do. In fact, I've ran into some kid last week in the park and he's like, "Hey, Miss Grushkin," and I'm looking at him and I'm like, "How do I remember him? He remembered me, but I didn't remember him."
Well, then he
Yeah,
wasn't the worst or the best of the
he
lot then.
got on his face. So, that was really great. And it was a beautiful career. And of course, what happens, like in many jobs, your people you work with become your family.
Yep.
So I had a lot of really rewarding relationships with colleagues and things that still continue today. And so, I feel really blessed to have chosen a wonderful career. I do get upset, I mean, the field has changed a lot. Certainly COVID has hampered it considerably. And that just always is discouraging to me and saddens me a bit. So when I find someone who's going to be a teacher and I encourage them and I, try to get them excited about it because I still think it's a great career. It really is. It's a great career.
Yeah. Did you have a moment or a a sense of like, I want, like, it's time to retire? And then did you start making a plan, or how did your retirement date transpire?
Well, 36 years, a long time. I mean, I certainly, in terms of pension wise, I met the age and the years that
Yep.
to get to retire with a full pension,
Yep.
and that was an incentive. Um, excuse me. I was also feeling the the way education was being delivered is being delivered has changed a lot over the years. There's a lot of testing and data driven instruction, a lot of scripted programs and things that we were required to do that just I felt like I couldn't be as creative as I used to be. And so
Mhm.
that frustrating for me. Although, I mean, on some level, that's also a little bit of a cop out because, once the doors are closed, there you do have a lot of, a certain degree of latitude in how you deliver. But I did feel some of the constraints of that and
Uh-huh.
so somewhat contributed to it. I also felt like I was, let's see, I'm 64 now, so I was 60 when I made that decision, and I had something going on in my life, my humanitarian work, and I felt like if I wanted to devote myself to it completely, and I can tell you that story in a minute,
Yeah.
and or recreate myself. I always knew that I needed to continue to work financially and emotionally was really important for me. I'm a sort of a worker horse. I like to be busy. I like to be stimulated. I'm not a person who sits around and watches TV. Although I do that. I do a little of that at night. I,
Mm.
that,
I think
um,
we all do at this point.
you know, I grew up in a very productive type of family. My parents were always working and doing, and that was sort of drilled into me for better or worse. And it feeds me.
Uh-huh.
I like to be stimulated, and so I felt like if I was going to make a move and still be strong physically and emotionally, then I should do it now
Yeah.
rather than wait. And now
Yep.
I have seen colleagues of mine, into their 60s and 70s, late 70s, still teaching. I do see that and quite productive. But I didn't want to come to that, and then at the end of that, like, well, what do I do now? So I felt like if I was going to sort of do a reset and sort of change things for myself, and that I needed to do it now. And so that's really was the impetus. And so I worked it out for myself. What was happening was in 2004, I had visited Nigeria. And so this is sort of how this segues into it.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was the president of a residential facility for pregnant teens here in Teaneck. And the pastor of the church was a missionary. He traveled all over the world. His next trip was Nigeria. And because I'm a photographer as well. I wanted to travel there. I thought, oh my God, this is an incredible experience. This is not an easy country to access on your own. Here I have somebody who knows the country, knows people. It's a perfect opportunity for me. And so I asked him if I could tag along, and I asked my school district if I could go, and they gave me the leave. Unbelievable. And I went, and prior to leaving, I raised some money because I know I didn't want to go empty handed. I knew I wanted to visit schools and see, what was going on. I was especially interested in how they navigated special education because that was my area of interest. And so I raised about 5 grand. And I went for about 2 weeks, a week and a half or so, I think, kind of sort of forget. And I was blown away by what I saw. Just remarkable kids, smart, curious about the world, but frustrated because the opportunities for them are limited. Yeah, it's hard to get out of that country for one thing. The resources are limited. You got tons of kids and it's sitting on, one bench, no resources, very few books, very few pencils. It's extreme. And
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, that really hit me. And I said, you know what? Maybe I can be of some assistance. I did have that money, and I went to the teachers and I had them create a wish list for me. I went out and I bought everything they asked for. They came back. I came back with it, and they were blown away by it, and they were shocked that I should do that. And so I was really blown away by their reaction to it. You know,
Yeah.
I I said, "Man, well, this feels really good." Back on the plane, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to create an organization, see if I can be of more assistance." And I came back, and I did. I separated myself from the church organization because I did not want to be a faith-based organization. I created a 501(c)(3), and then I began my work. And I've been working in Nigeria for over 20 years, going every year, um, and doing the kinds of things like buying uniforms and buying books and building furniture. And I once brought 10,000 books carried by the US Navy, installed 12 libraries in public schools. I built 4 schools, educating about 5,000 kids. Um, we've sent kids to college. I've got 10 kids in college, 5 of whom have already graduated. Um, so we've made a tremendous impact. They are public schools. I'm a public school educator. I believe that governments should educate their kids. That's their responsibility and not mine. But you need a little help with infrastructure. That's where I felt that I came in. But these schools still need maintenance. So while I don't pay teacher salaries, I do continue to support these schools with things that break down. Things break down. It's a rough terrain, so things need to be painted, roofs need to be patched, water systems need to be fixed. And so, my support continues. We run all kinds of programs in the schools: literacy programs, college prep programs, social entrepreneurship programs. And so, I never, ever, 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 ever thought that this would happen from, that first visit to 2004. But, you know, uh, we started something, and, just people just came on board and supported it. I was very, very lucky to have a very generous benefactor who saw the value of the work, saw that I was delivering on his dollar. Very low overhead. Pretty much everything he donated besides salaries, um, went to the kids. And so, it was a great opportunity for him to really put his money in a good place and see things happen. The organization has, unfortunately, um, come to a screeching halt. My benefactor has backed out. Uh,
Ah,
Personal reasons, of which I understand. But I'm extremely grateful to him. So I've been trying to keep this organization afloat. It's been very challenging. I'm still looking for somebody with big bucks who's willing to write me a nice check so that I can keep all this work going. But I'm also prepared to let it go and close it up. And so
Mm.
in an interesting place. So the point of the matter is, let me just set it back. Um, when I left teaching, I did so because I knew that I asked him, this benefactor of mine, can I draw a salary from the money that you're giving, donating to the cause? And he said yes. And so that supported me for for several years, and it was super great. And now that has come to a that has come to a crashing halt. And so, I need to work. And so what do I do? I gotta find a job. And so now I'm working. I'm still trying to raise money, but I'm also now, taking care of myself over here. And so my retirement has shifted from humanitarian work to a different kind of job, which I'll share with you now. Uh,
Yeah.
so it took
That's an incredible journey. And I love that you like had the purpose already in place before you officially retired. So, I mean, you had things in motion. You had something that was inspiring and feeding you as part of the process. That's often where the gap is. Like people are just so into their jobs, and then when they leave it and all the social connections and everything that's happened there, it ends up, being a difficult time. So I'm sorry to hear that things are pivoting for you. But I have no doubt that you're going to find something else, or another benefactor will show up magically for you. So yes, but tell me what you're doing now. Tell me the next phase.
if that doesn't happen, like I said, I can sleep at night.
Yeah.
Because the schools are public schools, so that they are running without me. Of
Yeah.
course, things that we've been able to do there, unfortunately, cannot continue. But then again, the schools that we built were built in very remote areas where there were no high schools. And that's what we were building, was high schools. And so the government, seeing that, came in and started to build some schools in this area. So the mission really, quite honestly, has been met,
Yeah.
you know. And so I'm not disappointed at all. I'm like really proud of like what we were able to initiate. I mean, I think we were like a catalyst, right?
Yeah.
That's how things work. And so I'm very, very proud. It's hard because the work was so exciting. It's just like ridiculously exciting to see things change, and opportunities open for kids. I mean, it's like there's nothing more exciting for me to receive an email, and I do on a daily basis, from my kids in college about the things that they're doing, and places they're going, the opportunities that they're opening up for them. So I can sleep easy at night. I'm not worried about that. And I have
Yeah.
beautiful pictures, to document the work. And I've been able to bring my children there. And so I feel really, really satisfied with what has been done. And so if I have to close that chapter of my life, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's really okay. And so here I am, jobless, right? So I'm a little in a panic. So what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah.
So when I was teaching, I got divorced in 2013.
Congratulations.
14, congratulations, right? And so, yeah,
I'm also happily divorced, so I say that.
I discovered the thing that I discovered that saved my ass was yoga and meditation. Um,
Uh-huh.
it really pulled me through a dark time in my life, and it brought me something that is unforgettable and that will sustain me for the rest of my life. And so I saw the value in myself, and the transformative power in myself. And so I brought it into my classroom, and I started teaching, doing yoga and meditation in my classroom with my kids. And I could not believe how powerful a practice it is with kids. In fact, I never really had problems maintaining behavior in my classroom, but I do have to say that it is the best behavioral tool I ever used. Uh,
Wow.
yes. And so kids loved it. Um, and they asked for it. And it was, I became, it was like the mindfulness, force whisperer in school. And so I started, teaching other teachers, and I started doing workshops. I was doing workshops at Rutgers, and showing teachers how to infuse mindfulness into their classrooms. Small practices that, without disrupting, all of the responsibilities that teachers already have, right? And so, again, this is a trend that, the schools are picking up, but, doing it in ways in which I thought, I don't know, I felt like I had a really good recipe for success with this, with the way I was delivering it. And so I created an organization called the Conscious Classroom. And I thought that what I would do was I would sell myself like as a wellness coach. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
To school, do you hire me? And I go into classrooms and I help teachers infuse these practices into their classrooms. Now, the only experience I had was my own experience in my own public school system. And so it made it very challenging for me. I was not a large organization there, and there were many, mindfulness schools. There are very large organizations doing
Yeah.
these. Um, and so it was very challenging for me, and I was getting very frustrated. I had built a curriculum that I was really proud of. And so I was like, all right, this is not working for me very well. During COVID, I got my yoga certification, yoga 200-hour cert. And so I was, I had certifications in that. I had certifications in trauma informed yoga, but still it was very challenging. Okay. So after I got my yoga certification, I got a job working in recovery, in adults in addiction recovery. Besides my teaching, this is the greatest job I've ever had.
Wow.
The greatest job I've ever had. In fact, I'm going tonight and I'm excited, beyond excited. I tell them sometimes you don't have to pay. I mean, under my breath, I'm like, if you didn't pay me, I wouldn't care. I'd show up anyway. Um, yeah,
But
but
also, I'll take your money.
keep paying me. Right, exactly. So, it is, it's transformative, you know. Obviously the idea is that, experience we experience life through our bodies, not just in our minds, right?
Right.
And if we don't talking and talking and talking about it is helpful, but if we don't process it, the experience through our bodies, we won't really heal entirely. And
Yeah.
so, that's really the premise behind it. And so movement is essential. Movement is medicine. And so every time I teach, I experience it with them. There's just this shift, and I often get people who have never done it before. So it's really exciting to see how they experience it for the first time, and how excited they get, and how good they feel. And so I really feel like, wow, this is my niche. Like, this is super great. And so I'm doing that um, 3 days a week. I teach yoga in a yoga studio to women over 50, because I also work on issues that address the issues of aging gracefully, right? Keeping us strong, working on our balance, working on our resilience, working on stress, working on strengthening the pelvic floor. And so I do that in the studio. I do that at home. And I also teach yoga to the elderly in a wellness center at England Hospital, which is also a super great job. Like, I walk in there and they're like so happy to see me. They're so excited. It's just like they're adorable and they're sweet and they love it. And so I do that. And I also teach prenatal yoga. So I like the niches of yoga because I like the therapeutic aspect of it, because I think it just works.
Yeah.
My daughter's pregnant, so obviously we work together, but I also have my own private clients, and where I have this method that I use that really works on opening the pelvic floor. And so it's just it's a wonderful, wonderful practice that really helps women prepare for what I call a boring, unremarkable birth, right? And so So I'm teaching a lot of yoga, like a lot of yoga. And so yoga's great, but yoga doesn't pay. I
Mm.
mean, I'd get paid relatively decently, but it doesn't make up for the money that I lost when I dropped my humanitarian job. Okay, so is the whole picture sort of coming together?
It
Right?
is, but the theme here is that you keep finding these really juicy, passionate projects that are lighting you up.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
That's
I mean,
no big deal.
that is inspiring, but I understand the money too. I mean, that's a thing.
Exactly. And so no, there's no way. And I've already said to myself in retirement, I am not going to do anything that I am not passionate about.
Perfect.
I mean, that's really essentially it. Don't stick me to Trader Joe's. I'm not going to bag, even though I really don't mind bagging groceries.
Those people always seem really happy.
There is something very meditative about it, but no, I have to do something that, that is feeding my body and my mind and my soul.
Yes.
And so those things are, and I'm a teacher. And so, like I want to keep teaching. And this is it. Anyway, so hence the last part of the story. So I'm looking, I'm thinking, maybe I can find a job in the humanitarian sector. I built an international educational organization. Somebody must need me. That was really challenging. Really having a hard time finding something like that. Although, I gave it a really good try. And then I said, Dena, this is it. And so my friend said to me, you know what, Dena, why don't you look at the teachers union in New Jersey, the NJEA. New Jersey Teachers Union happens to be one of the strongest unions in the country. They are an extremely liberal organization. They are doing things with teachers and school districts that are unheard of throughout the rest of the country, and they're very very powerful from a political standpoint, lobbying for all kinds of programs, and so it's a pretty remarkable organization, private organization, but it's the teachers union.
Yeah.
And so I applied for a job there as an educational consultant. I applied for the job in May. It was 9 months of waiting. I had to go through like these rigorous interviews. I had to do a written interview that was like, it was like a thesis. And then I had to do a presentation, and then I had to do a interview. Now I have to tell you, I thought I nailed the first two pieces of it. And the interview came, and this woman threw a question at me right at the beginning. And I was like, she threw me. The question just threw me. And it
Yeah.
sort of set the tone for the rest of the interview. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation before.
Yes, I have.
I got off that interview and I'm like, shit, I did not get that job. I was so upset. And guess what? I got the job. Anyway, so
Yeah, we always think it's worse than it actually is. I mean,
I didn't want to say anything to her after I met her, but once I got comfortable with her, and I'm like, Amanda, like, really? Yeah, I can't believe you hired me. I thought the worst interview ever. She goes, "Oh, Dena, you were great." I'm like, "Oh, girl."
okay.
You know what I felt like in that interview? You know when they interview beauty queen? I'm not a beauty queen, but you know when they interview beauty contestants, they
Yeah.
call, they ask them a question, and the question often is something like that's really simple, that's like way over their head.
Yeah.
And they're like, and they like flub it, and they're like, they smile, they have a smile on their face, but that what they're saying makes no sense. That's exactly how I felt. I felt like I made no sense, but I kept that smile on my face.
Yeah. You're like, okay, I don't know what's coming out.
What is the world's worst? Yeah. And I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
got the job, and I start tomorrow. I'm thrilled. And
Oh, congratulations. And well done for staying the course and hanging in there and, knowing that.
so the cool thing about
want.
the job is that the organization, my conscious classroom job, which I was trying to get off the ground, I can do all of that work here.
Oh, perfect.
Exactly. So the NJEA has an organization within it called the Access Model. And what they do is they identify districts in the state of New Jersey that are in need of improvement.
Yeah.
These districts that are really on the edge, on the cusp of losing federal funding.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so, actually, it's not federal funding. What happens is they lose their status, and the government has to come in and take over the school
Mm.
in order to raise the bar.
Mm.
And there are two districts in New Jersey that have been identified in need of improvement. One is Camden, and one is Trenton. And so, I'm going to be working in Trenton. And so my job is to go into Trenton, and I am like a coach. I coach teachers. We identify areas of the school that need attention, and those could be teachers who need support, who are struggling. They could be areas that the schools are struggling with, student performance, issues of racial inequity, anything that needs to be addressed and given support in order to raise the standards and raise the performance of kids, in order to raise the social emotional issues around teachers and kids, and getting everybody sort of back on track post COVID, because the
Yeah.
schools have taken such a hit. And there's so much angst and deregulate, kids are deregulated and teachers are deregulated. And so it's an opportunity to go in and do some really good work. And this program has made some remarkable movement in that area, and really brought a lot of the schools that we worked in out of that red zone of sorts. And so I start tomorrow. And so I'm really excited. I'm working with an amazing team of teachers. And so between that and my yoga, all is good. All is good.
Well,
So that's my life.
congratulations again. I think that this is a fantastic next step, an incredibly inspiring story for my listeners. And also, they are lucky to have you. You are going to go in and make things happen there that need to be done, and it's really exciting. They're lucky, and I want to thank you so much for your time today. Where can people find out more information in case that new benefactor is listening right now? You have a beautiful website.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll put a link to it. I think the Dream School Foundation.org.com. Okay. .org. And I will put a link to that in the show notes on this episode, and we'll make sure that people know how to find you. And can check that all out, because that work, it would be lovely if that could keep going. But I respect your tenacity and your ability to pull beautiful projects into your life. I think that's something that's worth waiting for, and something that people who are retired shouldn't settle for, doing something that's not going to really be juicy and inspiring and worth their time.
I've always I get a lot of lovely accolades,
Yeah.
and it's very nice, and I appreciate the sweet things people say to me. But I also want to say that you don't have to go as big as I have gone. I
Yeah.
know, people hear my story and they're like, "What?" You know, um, and I remind them that there's right in your backyard. There are ways in which you can give back and do good in the world. And just if it's you touch one person or two people, it doesn't matter. It's just look for ways in which you can be of good, of help and support, because that's what we need to do. That's the only way we're gonna all get through all this. So it doesn't have to be big. Big is nothing. That's not the point. The point is that do something that feels good and makes someone else feel good. That's it. That's what life is really all about.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dena. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.
You're very welcome.
This podcast is sponsored by Good Morning Freedom, my retirement coaching firm. I help executives and professionals plan the non-financial part of their retirement, like how to discover new purpose and how you want to spend your time. I offer a one-on-one coaching retirement blueprint package where we work together to discover some new avenues of exploration for your Act 3. This coaching is completely custom and will provide you with a ton of resources and support as you transition to this new stage of life. For all the details, please go to goodmorningfreedom.com/services.